Be careful what you ask for. If you want it too much, it might mean that you're not ready for it because it might be your ego that wants it. I needed some scars. I needed some failure stories. It's going to happen two ways, gradually then suddenly.
We live in a world of Insta fame, Instagram, huge followings. We want to do it right now. But let me tell you something, guys. That is an illusion. Anything of lasting value takes a grind. Today, I'm so excited to bring on my friend Mark Batterson and his newest book, where we take a deep dive into how to build character, how to become the man that God has called you to be, and how to build compounding interest in your life over time. Talk to us about the long game.
Yeah, first of all, I'll just say what comes to mind immediately. Sometimes you have to fuss.
I'm so excited to have my friend Mark Batterson on here. And before we came online, Mark, I was just telling you, like, I think you're my... we had like Max Lucado on last month. We had Lee Strobel on last week. But Mark, and I'm not trying to suck up because there's nothing that you can give me, but you're my favorite Christian author, I think. The way you write, the facts you pull out, I'm just so impressed. It's just so fun to read your books. And this one is just another one of those books, gradually then suddenly. Thanks for coming back on the show.
Hey, absolute joy. And that puts a smile on my face because I think a book ought to be enjoyable. Like you
Yes.
got to have a little bit of fun reading it. And so, man, thanks for the kind words, and excited to be back on and have another conversation.
Oh, man. Well, one of my life mottos is this. I've never been the smartest guy in the room. Obviously, I'm not the best looking guy in the room. I mean, but I've always had this motto. You don't have to be the best. You simply have to outlast the rest. And when I read Gradually Then Suddenly, I'm like, fire.
Boom. You know what? I mean, that's it. Outlast everybody else. Like, there is no quit in grit. I do think it's like whoever can just hang on the longest. Can we start kind of on a weird note, Jim? Is that okay?
Dude, hey, I'm selling your books. I'm highlighting you, so do what you want.
Man, so I wrote a book about Benaiah who chased a lion into a pit on a snowy day and
Love
killed
that
it.
book.
And listen, that's epic. But there was also this other guy, Eliezer, who it says he fought until his hand froze to the sword. And by the way, I'm looking at your forearms, brother. You're hitting the gym pretty consistently. But you know what's funny is it's actually called a fatigue spasm, that if you grip something long enough, hard enough, and in this case, a sword, like your forearm will flex and you can't unclench it. And it like is this story that's so inspiring to me. Like, here is someone that's going to fight until they literally drop. They're just going to outlast everybody else. And I think there's something to be said about that. And let's keep it real. You know what's even more amazing than holding on to a sword until your hand freezes to it? It's taking this position on a cross. Man, that is what a real man, son of God looks like. And I think we got to take a little bit more courage from these kind of stories to really infuse, kind of inject some of that tough love, that endurance, that for the joy that was set before him, Jesus endured the cross. So I don't know. It's a funny place to start, but it is what it is.
Well, it's funny. I'm going to go to the gym today. I'm going to try to rip out 14 pull-ups, and my hands will end up just like that. So I'll let you know how it goes, man.
I love it.
Grunting, sledding, with the fat guy on a pull-up bar. So, hey, it's really interesting to me. My target audience is Gen Zs and millennials, kind of in the stress bubble, raising their kids.
Yep.
And they bring so much to the table that is so amazing. I'm just so impressed with this generation below us, but if there's one thing that I could offer them as an older guy, is your book. I mean, it's your book. It's the ability to have grit and to endure, because I think that's one thing that our generation did wrong in raising our kids is we haven't done that. And you've done this in the book. Can you give us so the book is called Gradually, Then Suddenly, How to Dream Bigger, Decide Better, and Leave a Lasting Legacy. Can you talk about why you wrote this?
Yeah. Now, before I give the why, let me just say, if there are those guys listening that are kind of in the early family stages with young kids, I do want to point out that the word diaper spelled backwards is repaid. I'm just going to put that out there. It really is. It really is. So this too shall pass. But where were we? What were we talking about?
I just never know. I never know what to expect. The last podcast, you said something. You said grace without truth is weak sauce. Truth without grace is hot sauce. And grace and truth is the secret sauce.
That's it.
That's my memorable motive. And I think you just gave me a new one with diaper.
I love it. So, like you're saying, and I love this, like, let's celebrate Gen Z. Let's celebrate millennials. Like, come on. Every generation has their own burden to bear.
Yep.
And, probably the mistake we made was giving everybody a trophy if we're just keeping it real. Because how in the world are you going to learn how to get better if you don't feel the pain of losing and then going back and watching game film and trying to get stronger and faster and better at what you do? I do think that because things happen at the speed of light, we get a little spoiled that we forget that generally speaking, things happen at the speed of a seed that has to take root before it can bear fruit. And we want twice what our parents had in half the time. So let's just keep it real. Probably every generation is subject to that. I think this book is a little bit of an antidote. And I'll say this up front. If you're looking for a quick fix, get rich quick, shortcuts, cheat codes, don't even pick it up. It's gonna waste your time. But if you understand you got to play the long game, there's no 20% discount on the 10,000 hour rule, then maybe, just maybe, this book will be a reset and give you the courage to have long vision, long obedience, because that's what nets that long legacy. And so I just felt like it's a cultural moment that this is probably the moment to write this book. And Jim, I wouldn't have written it 10 or 20 years ago. We're about to celebrate 30 years, 3 decades. I blinked. And the next thing you know, we've been pastoring a church in DC for 30 years in January of 2026. And I just felt like it's time to kind of widen the aperture. And listen, you're going to overestimate what you can do in a year or two. You're going to underestimate what God can do in 10 or 20 or 30. So I'm hoping it's a little bit of a reality check, a little bit of a gut check, but also like give you the encouragement that, hey, it took this guy 13 years to write the first book. It took 20 years for us to get from rented facilities into an owned campus on Capitol Hill, which happens to be a city block. It's going to take longer. It's going to be harder, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to be worth it. Don't chase 15 minutes of fame. Don't sell your birthright for a bowl of stew. And if you know your Bible, you know what I'm talking about.
Come on, Red.
You gotta play that long game.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, it's really funny. We hit 1 million downloads this year in 9 months, and it took us 2 years to do the second million. And it's really interesting. You go back to those earlier episodes. I'm embarrassed to listen to them, quite frankly. But you've got to be willing to grind through your failure and your embarrassment and the humility. I mean, even offline, I was asking you, bro, tell me how you write these books. Like, give me some tips. There's got to be humility in the grind, right? Yeah. There's got to be grace in the grind, right?
Yep. And I share this little axiom at the beginning of the book that a black belt is a white belt that just didn't quit, and so it might take longer, but You got to stick with it. But by the way, what I love about this podcast is you can just like say stuff that you really shouldn't say out loud, but have fun doing it. Do you know at my age and stage, like I am trying to, have you seen all these airwalking videos? Like I really want to learn to airwalk. Go look it up if you haven't seen it. It's like this,
Oh,
it's almost like the old Running Man or the moonwalk if you go all the way back to
I was
Michael
thinking
Jackson.
moonwalking. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
okay, at my age, it's going to take a lot longer and probably a lot more practice than these kids that just kind of pick it up. Um, but that's part of what's fun about life. Like, listen, you can go out and climb a hill, big deal. Do something that's just going to tap you and stretch you. I don't care if it's Kilimanjaro, Everest, or maybe Mount Rainier or someplace else. But really, the
Yeah.
things that are satisfying in life are the things that took huge amounts of gradually, it took forever to get there. But that's where you kind of step back and like, oh, that was worth the blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah. I think Malcolm Gladwell talked about the tipping point. And then, I heard a quote. I'm going to give a credit to Benjamin Disraeli. Forgive me. I usually give all credit to C.S. Lewis, but on this one, I've been quoting Benjamin Disraeli, and he said, I think it was him. I spent all my life becoming an overnight success.
Yes. And
gradually.
Yep. And was it Sam Walton who said it took 20 years to become an overnight success?
It's probably all the same quote.
But I think, most people would say that exact thing. It just overnight success is an oxymoron. And the
Yes,
truth is, I don't want overnight success. Like, I don't want my gifts to take me where my character can't sustain me. And, if we were putting it in terms of trees that grow slow, that slow growth creates a greater density in the trunk, and it's much easier to withstand storms and wind and the elements. So if I had written a book at 22 when I felt called to write, I would have had to write a book at 23 to retract what I said at 22. It was frustrating that it took till 35, but looking back on it, I'm like, Lord, I know what you were doing. Like I needed to accumulate some life experience. I needed some scars. I needed some failure stories for it to ring true. And that's true of whatever it is. Lots of people listening who do lots of different things, have lots of different dreams. But it is going to follow that same path. It's going to happen two ways, gradually, then suddenly.
Well, and here's the other thing when we were 22. So you and I have over 60 years of marriage, not to each other, to one wife each. And then we both been in ministry probably close to 70 years.
Yeah.
So when I was 22, yeah, I had something to say. The problem is I had no one who would listen to me. You have 10 million books in print. You have a church that averages, now I may be wrong here. Okay, help me. If I'm wrong, tell me. Your average church attendance is 10,000. Is that an accurate enough number? I know it's 12,000 on Easter. Is that even close?
I mean, that would be probably counting some online and on demand, Jim. It's that's a little bit of an.
Well, hey, you're my guest.
We had more than that on.
Let me say what I want.
We had more than that on Easter, but yeah.
I know you had 12 on Easter, but you got now people will listen.
Yeah.
To what you had to say. I hear people saying all the time, "Hey, man, as the crow flies, direct route, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line." And I'm going to let you say the word. You're going to pronounce the word, but your prologue, a lot of times I'll skip over the prologue. Yeah. But whenever I read a Batterson book, I don't, because that's kind of when you bring the heat in those early chapters and rock your world. Can you talk to me about this effect that I'm going to let you pronounce?
The brachistochrone curve. And say that's 3 times fast. Man, when I had to record the audiobook, I was like, I regret including this particular illustration. It was a mathematician, 17th century. Bernoulli was his last name, who said, yeah, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, but it's not the fastest route. That actually the brachistochrone curve is used by those who design skate parks, who design roller coasters, that actually it's a dip that will get you there faster because of the law of gravity. And so some of us get discouraged when like success is not a linear A to B path, but sometimes you have to go through the dip, and that dip is actually going to prove to be a blessing in disguise. And, personally, a failed church plant, it was terrible when it happened. That was our first attempt. But I look back on it and like it set us up to then lead this church for 29, almost 30 years. And the same would be true with writing, that 13 years, that's a long dip. That's a long time to have a dream deferred. But it was those 13 years reading 3,000 books that then kind of set me up to write about a book a year. We're actually more than a book a year because we're at about 25 books over, I guess, about 18, 19 years now. So I think take encouragement if you're in the dip. That's just kind of part of the process.
Well, and you quoted Seth Godin in your book, and he said success. He said the secret of the dip is the secret of success. I got to tell you a funny story. So I got married in 1992.
Hey,
and when
me
I asked
too.
my father, so you've been married 33 years.
What is your wedding? What's your wedding date?
Well, you're in ministry. I got married. I can tell you what month you got
May.
married in. Summer. Oh my God. August
Okay.
1st.
Wait, so May 23rd, 92.
So I've just got married a little bit after you.
Hey, listen, I just want you to know, Jim, it's those extra 3 months. That's where you learn everything. It's really
I know. I was going to call you. I was going to call you and see if you could help me out. I got a question about my bride.
Oh man, that's pretty funny.
But I know you haven't figured yours out either, so I'm not going to call you.
No.
Okay, so listen to this. So my father-in-law, when I asked him to marry his daughter, she was 22, I was 26. He said, Jim, he said, marriage is like a roller coaster. Sometimes on that climb, it's a grind, but man, when you go, it's so fun. But what he didn't tell me is after you get to the descent, there's a dip and then another climb. And so I think this could have been in your book.
Yeah, there you go. Man, maybe the second edition, I can include that.
Sequel.
It is true. Like life, leadership, all of it's a roller coaster, and you never get off, do you? You never reach kind of like a zero gravity where you're just clicking along at a nice little pace. It's always the ups and downs. It's true.
And I think we have to tell the younger generation to expect that.
Yeah.
And just acknowledge the dip.
I mean, just knowing kind of your audience, when I've done premarital counseling, and I don't do a ton of counseling now, because if you get counseling from me, you're going to need some additional counseling to undo my counseling. Like, it's not my strong suit, but I would tell couples who are getting married, kind of going through premarital counseling, that like the shorter you've dated, there are going to be more surprises because you haven't ridden the roller coaster long enough to see some of the ups and downs. But in fairness, some of those surprises will be wonderful. Some of them might be like, kind of eye-opening. But the truth is, love, life, leadership, all of it is a roller coaster, and there are plenty of brachistochrone curves. But when you're hitting the dip, take heart. Don't lose faith. Don't lose hope. There's going to be some tough times, but it's going to make you a stronger leader. It's going to make for a stronger marriage. I mean, my wife and I have walked through 2 bouts with cancer that she's had over the last 7 years. Yep. And like I sure hope there isn't a third, but we're stronger and we have a better marriage because of the challenges. The obstacle is not the enemy, the obstacle is the way. And someone has said the first you can't spell testimony without the first four letters test. And I
Yep.
literally
Yep.
thought of this today. It's hilarious. You can write a book and then there's like a bolt of lightning. You can't spell gradually without grad. Like
Yeah.
you have to graduate from the challenges. Life is a classroom. Take a learning posture, growth mindset, and it's as you learn those lessons, you can graduate gradually to the next level. And now God can trust you with more. Like Moses needed those 40 years in the wilderness so that God could really teach
Yep.
him the lessons, because he was going to lead the people of Israel for 40 years through that wilderness. So it's pretty important.
Well, in your book, you said this, and I just, this to me resonates so much. You said, if you don't like who you are or where you are, don't play the victim, play the long game. We overestimate, you said this earlier, we overestimate what we can accomplish in a year or two or three, but we underestimate what God can do. So can you I think this is so important. I say this to people all the time. You are in this with your wife. You are in this with your children. You are in this with this parent that you're not connecting with for the long haul.
Yep.
So talk to us about the long game.
Yeah. First of all, I'll just say what comes to mind immediately. Sometimes you have to forgive reality for what it is. And all of us were dealt a certain hand. Like, do I wish I hadn't had 6 knee surgeries or ruptured intestines? I have a foot less intestines than everybody else. Like
Whoa.
I've gone through some physical challenges. I had asthma for 40 years before God healed me.
Remember that.
But you can't really control, like, family of origin. You're getting dealt a hand. Everybody is born into somebody else's story.
Yes.
So I've just learned, when things go bad, don't play the victim. When things go good, don't play God. You just have to play the long game and really be focused on, man, I want to be conformed to the image of Jesus. So let's get in each other's business a little bit. What makes us think that we can become like Jesus without being tempted by Satan in the wilderness, betrayed by Judas, mocked by Pharisees, and crucified by Roman soldiers? Like, that's not reality. The reality is we're going to go through some tough times. We're going to experience temptation. There are going to be seasons where success looks like just getting out of bed in the morning. There's going to be some tough times. But I think that's where, going back to what you said at the outset, you have to outlast. And part of that is you got to outlast the enemy. Like, he's going to keep coming at you.
Yep.
But you got to keep playing that long game and ground yourself in God's word and keep practicing those spiritual disciplines, even when it's hard. And even when you have no idea what God is up to and it feels like you're flying blind, those are the moments where you have to know what you know. And here's what I know for sure. No one else lived a sinless life besides Jesus. No one else died on the cross for my sin. No one else predicted their own resurrection and pulled it off 3 days later. He is seated at the right hand of the Father. And when all else fails, when it feels like the world's falling apart, I want to tell you this: the kingdoms of this world are still becoming the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. So don't lose faith in the end of the story, and don't lose faith in the story that God's writing in your life. Fix your eyes on Jesus, author and perfecter of your faith, and then keep on keeping on, one day at a time.
Well, and continue Hebrews 12, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame. So it didn't just happen. I mean, and so the beautiful thing about it when you're talking is Philippians 1:6 is a verse I hold on to. I am confident in this very thing, that he who began a good work in you, he began a good work in you because he's in you. And he's going to work with you to build this characteristic of endurance, perseverance. And so I do have a question here, a little bit of a hard left here, hard right, whatever. Talk to me about opportunity cost and its effect on this long game and building this characteristic of endurance.
So Jesus said, count the cost, but it's multivariable calculus. Most of us are really good at counting actual cost, but opportunity cost is leaving things on the table. It's the woulda, coulda, shoulda. And maybe I can use the city block that just a miracle. We got a 100,000 square foot building, and it did cost 29.3 million, so it wasn't free. It took a lot of faith to just jump out and like, oh man. So we could have just counted the actual cost and said, hey, we can save 29.3 million in actual costs by not buying this building. But I think the opportunity cost would have been greater because you have to do what you do for the third and fourth generation. We're not just trying to build a church. We're trying to bless a city. We're trying to seek the peace and prosperity of the city where we live, Jeremiah 29. We're trying to plant gardens and build houses. And there was a false prophet, Hananiah, who said, you're only going to be there 2 years. This is the Jewish prisoners of war in Babylon. You're only going to be there 2 years. The problem with that is if you have a 2-year mindset, you're going to rent the city. You aren't even going to unpack your suitcase. But Jeremiah said you're going to be there 70 years. And so he was saying, do what you do for the third and fourth generation. So we know that, the actual cost was 29.3. Oh, by the third and fourth generation, this city block will be worth $1 billion should the Lord tarry. And so where we get caught is we tend to think actual cost, but I think true leadership is calculating the opportunity cost. And so, I mean, you could say if we go back to Esau, like the opportunity cost was the birthright, was the blessing. The actual cost was a bowl of stew, but he made a terrible calculation. He was too focused on right here, right now. And so part of what I'm trying to do in that chapter is long vision doesn't just calculate actual cost. It calculates opportunity cost. So like even, right now I'm mentoring 8 pastors in a cohort, but I don't see 8 people. I see thousands of people because that's who they lead. So if I can have some influence in those 8 people, there's a multiplier, and the multiplier is they're going to lead those kind of cumulative thousands of people much more effectively. So it's this mindset where you have to do the math, but do it in the way that God does it. And so, and that's a longer conversation, but it really has helped me with time management. So if I do a one-on-one meeting with someone, it's 30 minutes times 1. But when I'm preaching, if it's thousands of people, you do the math, and it's many collective months of time. That's the leverage point. So I have to almost Jedi mind trick myself because I feel bad anytime I say no to a meeting. But if I say yes to this one-on-one, then I'm actually discounting the thousands of people that might be hearing that 30-minute message. And so, and I'm not saying I never do one-on-one, I do, but it's about being wise and redeeming the time and understanding the leverage points and where the greatest payoff is. And so all of that kind of is mixed into that idea of opportunity cost.
Well, and really, as a father, as a husband, we've got to think third and fourth generation with our lineage.
Yes.
It goes, you know what I mean? The ministry is one aspect, but the other aspect, we're looking at our kids, our marriage, and this thing, what we do affects generations.
Yeah. Yep.
And so if we're building a quitter mindset, a soft mentality into our own lives, guess what it's going to affect?
And so that example, I'll share something very practical. There was a time where I was accepting way too many speaking invitations. So I'm trying to pastor a church, write books, and our kids were young, where they need help with homework, where I need to
Yeah.
coach their little league team. And I was taking too many opportunities. And my wife said, this isn't what I signed up for. And it was a
Yeah.
dagger moment. But you know what I did? I established boundaries. And so I will not take more than 7 overnight speaking trips a year to this day, because if I don't guard those boundaries, saying yes to one thing, and Andy Stanley is the first person I heard say this, saying yes to one thing is saying no to something else. So I don't want to cheat my
Yeah.
family by saying yes to this, that, and the other thing. So everybody has to do their own kind of calculation with actual cost, opportunity cost,
Yep.
but then you have to make hard decisions, establish priorities, establish boundaries. For me, success is when those who know me best respect me most. That's my wife and my kids. And so at the end of the day, if I want to be famous in my home, I have to be home enough to be famous in my
Yep.
home.
It's funny. I can tell you and I've listened to some John Maxwell,
Well, listen, all of us
because
are
that was one of his
all of
big
us
sayings.
are Maxwellian, aren't we? You know,
Yeah. Yeah. We've got like the 50 books in our library, the 21, 21
yeah.
laws of everything,
We're
but
probably
yeah.
all just
100%. But those,
paraphrasing John Maxwell.
yeah, our generation above us used to quote C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
We quote John
Yeah.
Maxwell. But that's 100% true. Do the people around me who know my flaws and know me the best, do they respect me the most? That
Yeah.
is, I mean, that success in the dip,
Yep,
right?
for sure.
So talk to me about this concept of everything is created twice.
The first creation internal, second creation external. First creation might be the inspiration in the imagination. Second creation is the perspiration. It's the blood, sweat, and tears. So
Yes.
I'd rather have one God idea than 1,000 good ideas. Good ideas are good. God ideas change the course of history. But then what I have to do, so I'll even use this book as an example. I'm trying to think of where I first heard the Ernest Hemingway quote, but immediately when I heard it, I took it captive, 1 Corinthians 10:5, and I began to make it obedient to Christ. How? Well, as a writer, I take thoughts captive with the 26 letters of the English alphabet on a keyboard. But I had to kind of capture the idea and then eventually turn it into about a 60,000, 65,000 word book. And that's where the first creation is the idea, and it happens in the imagination, or you could say the imago Dei, and then the making it obedient to Christ is kind of the missio Dei, or really living it out, working it out. And this is true of everything. Like, so there was a moment that when God healed my asthma, I was like, let me do something I couldn't have done before. Let me go out and run a marathon. Well, I couldn't go out and run 26.2 miles the next day, but I had to do 72 training runs, 475 miles over 6 months. Then and only then could I pull off that marathon. So I think what you have to do is you have to figure out, okay, first creation, like ideas are great, but the people who really make a difference in the world, they aren't just the dreamers, they're the doers. They aren't just the ideators.
Yes.
They're the people that just, come hell or high water, I feel like God has called me to do this, and I'm not going to stop unless He says stop. I'm going to just keep putting one foot in front of the next, and so everything created twice, and we've got to be good at both of those things. And really, the book is almost like okay, there's a moment where you get that idea, but it's going to happen gradually, then suddenly. And that's where you have to take ideas, take thoughts captive, make them obedient to Christ. And I don't care if you're an entrepreneur trying to start a business, trying to write a book, trying to plant a church, trying to raise kids, all of them are going to fall into that created twice category.
You know, as you were talking, I was going back to what you said earlier about Moses, and then this word gradually. In my brain, for a guy who's living in a stress bubble, who's raising kids, he's in the grind. This in some ways becomes a season of obscurity, where Moses was in the desert for 40 years prepping. And I think that, and again, I love the younger generations, but I think sometimes we hate these seasons of obscurity where we're grinding and it's gradual. We don't want to do the gradual. We want to have the suddenly. And I think this is where we get trapped, right?
I'll just share from my lived experience that when I was in my 20s, maybe early 30s, there were stages that I wanted to be on speaking. And I look back on it, and if you want it too much, it might mean that you're not ready for it, because it might be your ego that wants it. And so I think be careful what you ask for. I don't think there's that pattern of, whether it's 40 years in the wilderness like Moses, or even 40 days in the wilderness like Jesus. There are just going to be seasons of obscurity, and you might not like it when you're in it, but someday you'll thank God for it, because those are actually the seasons where you can really work your craft. You can just fall in love with gradually, and what it is that you do it for intrinsic reasons, and then let the results happen where they may. I didn't set out to write a book that would sell millions of copies. That's not what I was doing at all. I literally was writing for the applause of nail-scarred hands. I was writing because I knew I was called to write, and I can't control how many people read a book. And to me, a book sold is not even a book sold, it's a prayer answered. So if you're doing things, if you want the suddenly, and you're doing things for extrinsic reasons, friend, you're not ready. You're not ready. I'm just being blunt. You're not ready for what it is that God wants to do in your life. So you have to cultivate. And listen, I'm not saying it'll take 13 years to write the book like it did for me, but God knew that was the moment that, I guess at that point, I was ready. Maybe it just took longer because this guy wasn't ready for what God wanted to do. So be it. I've learned to embrace and actually cherish the gradually. And I mean, I've got a couple of movie scripts that we've been shopping for years that haven't found funding. I'm not frustrated, because I've been down this road enough times. I've ridden the Christochrone curve enough times that in God's timing, it's going to get into the right hands, and it'll get on the big screen when it gets on the big screen. I'm going to trust God to handle the timing, and I'll just focus on maybe writing that best script that I can, and see what God does with it.
Well, I think it comes down to that for me as well. If God really is who he is, if he is who the Bible says he is, if he is who he says he is in the Bible, then we can trust him. If he puts a movie script on our heart, we write it. If he puts a book on our heart, we write it. We just got to be willing to do whatever he wants, whenever he wants. You said something earlier. It reminded me of a Mississippi pastor, a guy named Dwayne Pickett. I was in New Hampshire. speaking at an event, and he said, sometimes our charisma can take us further than our character can keep us.
Mhm.
And for those young guys listening, do not despise small beginnings. Put your nose down and grind it out. Get going. Get to work. Do whatever you can. Do it for who. Do it for the one who you want to please. Colossians 3:23, and let's grind this sucker off.
That's so good.
How about this cathedral thinking? Talk about that.
I think the best example of cathedral thinking are these Gothic cathedrals, the Cologne Cathedral, for example, that took more than 600 years to construct. Like, man, I
Can you
mean,
believe that?
it really is unbelievable. Like, we get frustrated if something takes 6 minutes or 6 hours or 6 days. Try 600
Yes.
years. But that's where, really what I'm trying to do with the long vision, the first third of the book, Cultivating Long Vision, is to think beyond our lifespan. That God is always writing a bigger story. He's writing a better story. He's writing a longer story. And newsflash,
Yes.
what we think is our legacy might not even be our legacy. A guy named Norman Borlaug, and I'll give the very short version, but man, this is one of my favorite stories that I've written in any book that I've written. Was Norman Borlaug wins a Nobel Prize in 1970 for disease-resistant high-yield wheat that saves 1 billion lives. And no one's ever heard of this guy. But what's interesting is it was a generation before, a guy named Henry Wallace, a former vice president, secretary of the agriculture, who founded a research station in Mexico and had the foresight to appoint Norman Borlaug to that post. So I would say Henry Wallace gets partial credit for that Nobel Prize, but wait, there's more, because it was a guy named George Washington Carver who, when Henry Wallace was a young boy, would take him by the hand and take him on botanical expeditions where that little boy fell in love with God's creation. And so I would say George Washington Carver gets partial credit, but if he gets partial credit, so does Etta Mae Budd, the art teacher, who said to Carver, hey, I think you can be a greater service to humanity if you pursued science instead of art. And we could play this game all day. You can play that game with Elisha and Elijah. Like, Elisha, twice as many miracles, but I think it's a credit to Elijah who put that mantle on Elisha. So, like, Jim, when we think about who maybe we've had the joy and privilege of influencing, I don't think we even have any clue. Only eternity will tell, because not many people will influence 1 million people, but you might influence one person who influences 1 million people. And so that's where, with long vision, you've got to have cathedral thinking. You've got to think centuries, not just decades or years or months. You really have to think about that big picture. And when you do, it starts influencing your day-to-day decisions. And so that all I'm trying to do there is poke people and leaders and say, maybe you're not thinking big enough. Maybe you're not dreaming big enough, but that means you need to think long and have long vision.
So is this what you're talking about with the butterfly effect?
Yeah, it's a fun little story that, and I mean, we can maybe even keep that one for readers. It might take too long to explain, but the butterfly effect, it's this idea: little things make a big difference. Small changes in input have profound impact on outcome.
My son has been nerding out on our family history. He got some ancestry thing for free, and we're related to Abraham Lincoln, one of our relatives, Jack Eaton, was on the Mayflower coming over. We have another relative taught George Washington how to survey. Well, really a deep, rich family history. But the secret behind this, the thing that's the takeaway is, listen, and you said this in your book, listen, don't think about now. Think about being a good ancestor. Think about somebody, we're going back to 1754 with some of these guys. So I think there's something we need to think about. Will we be remembered? And if so, how will we be remembered?
Yeah, I do have to say, though, I am now picturing you with an Abraham Lincoln top hat.
I got to tell you a funny story. We had a family reunion years ago, and we had our only direct ancestor, Lincoln, like direct. And his name was, his first name was Lincoln. Now, I won't tell you the last name. But he showed up to our family reunion, and he looked around. He goes, man, you are a good-looking group of people. Abraham Lincoln was known as the ugliest man to ever hold political office. And this direct relative was case in point. And so we're like, man, thank God the gene pool jumped or something for us.
No doubt.
Just really. My son said, I didn't believe we were related to him, but we are. Yeah, it's so exciting. So just really fun. But part of this family history is important.
And I think big picture, we drink from wells we didn't dig. We eat from fields we didn't plant. We live in houses we didn't build. And so we have to return that favor. And part of cathedral thinking is just setting up the next generation. Even the city block that we bought, we invested $1 million digging 109 micropiles 40 feet deep to reinforce 96 columns because this building is 1891. We did that to activate an acre and a half of roof deck. But here's the irony. We have no plans on building on top of the building. Well, then why would you invest $1 million? Because the next generation might. And we knew you have one shot to reinforce those footers. And so we thought, hey, if we're playing the long game, should the Lord tarry, then let's invest $1 million because that will be a multiplier because that acre and a half of roof deck, if it was land on Capitol Hill, would cost $25 million. So we felt like it's this idea of setting up future generations the way that we've been set up and the shoulders that we stand on from previous generations.
Well, Mark, I'll tell you what, every book you write is just epic. I mean, you just bring it over and over and over again. I appreciate you. I feel like I'm kind of in the rotation now. You write a book, you get on my show. I'm kind of super thankful for that. So, man, sure appreciate you. We know where we can find the books. I'm not asking that question anymore, but they don't all know where they can find you. So where can these guys tap into you as a generational resource?
MarkBatterson.com. And, I like, you love those appetizers. Do you ever just go to Costco because you just want some samples, some free samples?
Gotta be on Saturday, man.
I've got a sample chapter at markbatterson.com. You might want to sample it before you actually order the entire meal. And you can do that at that website. But let me just say this. I love your spirit. It comes through. And honestly, it's the spirit of Jesus. I just think we're in a cultural moment where we've got to show up different. And part of that is just like the fruit of the spirit. Like I think kindness and gentleness are way underrated. But ultimately, man, I appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing. And what a great conversation.
Appreciate you, man. It's fun to be a part of the grind together. But I will say one more thing. I don't want to one-up you here. But, there are certain places I go, and I don't need to get the appetizer because I know the buffet is the same all the time. So I don't think they need to mess around. Just go buy the dang book, you guys.
I love it. Hey.
Man, come on. You know what I'm talking about. Hey, buddy, have a great day. It's always good to see your face.
Bye.
Until next time, feel the wet sand on the arena floor. Hear the deafening roar of the crowd. Taste the sweetness of victory. Smell the stench of battle. Get in the game. Get dirty. Grind it out. You're in it for the long haul. And be a man.